How your brain turns moments into memories, and why they keep changing. Memories are biological magic. They let you experience bygone moments again and again. With them, your mind can encode, store, and retrieve information about the world and about yourself. But memories are not static, like photographs. They are more like dioramas made of wax. Every time they sit under the spotlight of your attention, they melt and change a little. That is a bit concerning, because memories are a huge part of what makes you, you. They are the personal history that much of your identity is built on, and the foundation for your decisions about the future. So what does it mean if they change? And more fundamentally, what actually is a memory? How does a single moment in time get stored inside squishy meat? Your brain is wonderfully strange. The human brain is the most complex thing in the known universe, so we need to simplify quite a bit. Scientific models are useful, but they are never a perfect reflection of reality. The same way talking about elementary particles is always a simplification. In a nutshell, what makes you think and feel is a system of roughly 86 billion neurons, an extremely complex electrochemical network sending and receiving signals through synapses, the tiny gaps between cells where an electrical signal turns into chemicals, crosses the gap, and gets converted back into electricity again. That is how neurons talk to each other, and it is a busy conversation, since a typical neuron connects to as many as 10,000 others. Together, they form a network of hundreds of trillions of connections, roughly 100 times more than there are galaxies in the observable universe. From these connections, the magic of your existence emerges. To create order out of that chaos, some connections need to grow stronger. Whenever two neurons fire at the same time, their synapse changes, and their bond gets stronger. They become buddies, in a sense, and when one of them is called into action, the other joins in. Zoom out and patterns start to emerge. Dozens or thousands of neurons organize into local columns, basic processing units that each handle a small slice of the input flooding in from your senses. Light and dark, a location in space, the texture of something, the sound of a word, and so on. You have columns for sound, for images, for touch, each located in a different part of the brain. These columns are the gears of the biological machine that is your cortex, the fundamental hardware you emerge from. Everything you see, hear, or feel sets these gears turning, meaning groups of neurons fire together. But for you to have one coherent experience, all these different gears need to be linked up. Any moment you perceive is built from many separate parts. Right now, as you take in this script, your eyes are activating columns for vision and color in your visual cortex. Your ears are feeding signals to your auditory cortex. Your language areas are decoding the words, and other networks are tracking your body and your emotions. All of that gets processed in deeper brain regions that evaluate the input, boosting whatever seems important right now and tuning out the rest. Simplifying a lot, this concert of gears, levers, wheels, and screws comes together to create a new structure inside your brain, an assembly, a fresh pattern of synchronized activity across the grand architecture of your mind. This assembly, made of very different neurons firing together, is what gives you the felt experience of being a person in this exact moment. But that assembly is only activity, with no permanent substance behind it, like ripples on a pond. Left alone, nothing remains. Without memory, you would be trapped forever in the present. To become a being that transcends time, your brain has to etch these fleeting sensory moments into something physical and lasting. And how does it decide what earns that permanence? Through a ruthless competition. At any given moment, more than one assembly is active in your brain. You cannot process everything happening in the world and inside you with full attention, so different assemblies compete for dominance. The details are complicated, but at any instant one assembly wins and gets marked as the most important. That winning assembly is whatever you are currently aware of. When an assembly wins, two things happen. First, its neurons get bathed in chemicals that make them more receptive to change and pull them closer together, strengthening their synapses. Second, the hippocampus, your brain's memory center and librarian, switches on. The exact mechanism is still not fully understood, but broadly, the hippocampus creates a blueprint. a rough sketch of the assembly's configuration, filed away alongside all your other memories that share something in common with this moment. And just like that, you have a memory. An activation pattern spread across millions of neurons in many different brain regions. Trigger any part of that pattern later, and the whole assembly can fire again, letting you relive a moment that is otherwise gone forever from the real world. But a fresh memory is fragile and temporary. The hippocampus holds the blueprint, but without reinforcement the assembly fades and its synapses weaken again. That is why you forget most of your life, and why you cannot recall what your coffee tasted like on some random Monday months ago. Most of what happens to you, and most of what happens in the world around you, is experienced once and then lost. News stories vanish within days, often before you even had the full picture. For a memory to truly stick, its assembly has to fight for survival, and there are several ways it can win that fight. Novelty. If you walk to the bus, half listening to a mildly interesting podcast, as usual, the signal is too weak, and the moment disappears like tears in rain. But if you happen to see a crow and a squirrel fighting over a nut, only for a mouse to swoop in and steal it, the assembly fires strongly just because it is so unusual. Repetition. Reactivating a memory over and over after it forms etches it deeper. Replaying the animal fight in your head all day, or retelling it to everyone you meet, works the same way as drilling repetition when you are trying to learn something new. Emotion. Feeling something strongly is one of the most powerful ways to lock in a memory. Emotions are ancient survival mechanisms, evolved hundreds of millions of years ago to steer you away from danger and toward food and reproduction, and you experience them as things feeling good or bad. Whenever you feel something intensely, your ancient brain flags the moment as important for survival, whether that is actually true or not. That is why so many of your strongest memories are emotionally loaded. The embarrassment of acting foolish in front of a crush, the joy of finally beating your dad at a video game, the grief of losing a pet, the overwhelming love of holding your first child. Strong activation, repetition, and emotion all do the same underlying thing to a memory. Remember those chemicals that make neurons capable of change? Under these conditions, the change becomes dramatic. Like wax growing warm and pliable, the gears of the assembly sprout new teeth to interlock more tightly. Neurons form more synapses, and the whole network fires together more efficiently. A lot of this consolidation happens while you sleep, as the hippocampus replays the assembly again and again, making it more solid and easier to retrieve. Skip enough sleep, and you literally lose more of your life, which is worth remembering the next time you are tempted to pull an all-nighter before a test. Eventually, though, you end up with a proper long-term memory, a diorama of hardened wax, a scene etched into a lasting pattern of connections in your brain. Now you can remember it forever. Well, almost. To recall a memory, you need a cue, something that was part of the original assembly. A smell, a sound, a word, maybe the image of an angry crow. Your hippocampus searches its index for that cue, hopefully finds the matching stored assembly, and fires it up. The past experience returns. The diorama plays out in your mind, and you relive watching the crow and squirrel fight. So far, so good. But as the diorama plays, you start changing it. Recalling a memory is nothing like pressing play on a saved video. Under the spotlight of your attention, parts of the wax soften again and become moldable, because the neurons involved get bathed once more in chemicals that allow their structure to shift. The hippocampus organizes memories around several factors, but context matters most, and your context has changed. When the memory first formed, you were tired, mildly annoyed before work, and genuinely surprised. Now you might be pulling up that same memory on a night out with friends, turning the crow and squirrel fight into a funny story. That new context seeps into the memory. New connections form, some synapses weaken, others reconfigure, and the diorama shifts, often becoming funnier or more absurd than it actually was. Not because you intend it to, but because your brain is simply folding the present context into the past scene. Once your attention moves on, the diorama hardens again in its new form. Next time you recall the animal fight, you will likely remember it as even more exaggerated than the last version. The same thing happens to every memory you have. Each time you retrieve one, your brain adds details, drops others, and blends in your current emotions and expectations, effectively updating your past to fit the story of your present. Over time, even core memories can shift, merge with other memories, or grow entirely new elements. Your memory system was never built to create an accurate record of the world. It evolved as part of your learning machinery. So memories update continuously as you gain new experiences. Ironically, the more actively you remember something, the less of the original experience survives intact. Vividness is not proof of accuracy. A memory feeling strong and clear only means its assembly is robust, not that it is correct. This is not a sudden process. Your identity is not about to unravel overnight. It is a slow drift in the overall pattern of your mind. You are who you are today, but your future self will think and feel differently about the very things you are living through right now. This is also part of why therapy can be so effective. Revisiting painful memories in a safe setting, with thoughtful reflection, literally rewires your brain, giving you a real chance at becoming happier. So, yes, your memories are the personal lore your life is built on, and the foundation for what comes next. But it turns out that, with the right support, you may be able to rewrite that lore and become who you actually want to be. Like and subscribe. Health is wealth. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.